Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to KSR's rapid reaction of Kentucky's 87-64 loss to South Carolina. Kentucky had a fun run here in Greenville, but it has sadly come to an abrupt end. You know, you look at the game, and from the jump, they didn't have it, right? South Carolina did just about everything right, and I don't think they played insane today. I think they played pretty good, but I don't think, you know, like. They're when South Carolina plays like they did today, I don't think they're unbeatable, but when you're Kentucky and you play the way you did, then they're a little bit more unbeatable, right? It was just a frustrating game all around for Kentucky. You get down in a big hole early and you simply just can't overcome that against a great team. Really from the get-go, Kentucky was in a hole, and you know no matter what they tried to do, it didn't stick, right? Defensively, feels like for Kentucky defensively and South Carolina offensively, the Gamecocks were just getting good looks offensively and they were hitting them, right? And then, they weren't even killing you from three to start. It's really Kentucky allowing lanes to the rim. And then all of a sudden, Tessa Johnson starts making every single three like she always does. And at one point, I think Kentucky was down 27, and that was the biggest deficit of the year. Of course, ended up losing by 23, but you know, that's a great team that Kentucky just played. And it's just frustrating because, I don't like to sit here and make these excuses for why Kentucky lost, right? Because at the end of the day, I do think it's the X's and O's on who plays better that day. But at the same time, it is the fact of the matter. It was their third game in 3 days. It was basically a true road game. I'm not complaining. That is just a fact, right? But you know, it happens. Sometimes you run into a buzzsaw, right? If South Carolina plays the way they did today, I'm not sure they lose to anybody really. Like they didn't play their A+ game. Like South Carolina probably had a B+ to A- game, but their B+ to A- is just about better than everybody else's A+. So you know, you, it, the vibe I got from Kenny Brooks and the team after the game, talking to them, was kind of like a live and learn kind of thing. Like, okay, you walked away from the game healthy, so that's nice. And uh, now you have to see where are you playing, right? ESPN's Charlie Cream had Kentucky as a 4 seed. And his latest bracketology, of course, Kentucky beat Georgia yesterday. Michigan State lost, and they kind of flip flopped right there on the seeding line. And I don't know, maybe Kentucky ends up hosting, but I'm gonna say for one, obviously, it's ideal if Kentucky hosts. I think we all know that, right? You want to be able to have those first two games at home. And the other thing is, well, you're going to end up, if you're the 5, you're going to end up playing the 4. If you're the 4, you're going to end up playing the 5. So you're kind of going to play the same team regardless, right? Wherever you end up, Michigan State, Maryland, wherever. And for Kentucky, why not have those first two games be at home instead of on the road, right? And I think when you just look at how this season has gone, I think Kentucky should host. Like Tiani Key was out for that 6-game stretch, and they lost some games they shouldn't have. But it's unfortunate because I don't know how much that's going to matter to the committee. They weren't in the top 16 in the latest reveal. Right now, Kentucky, we just got to kind of hate watch the Big Ten tournament. Like Ohio State and Minnesota are playing. I think we should root for Minnesota because if I remember right, Ohio State was number 16 overall in the latest reveal. So you would hope they fall. Michigan State lost, so they'll fall. Maryland lost. They would probably fall, but I don't know if that matters because Maryland already beat Kentucky. So I think they'll be ahead just because of the head-to-head. The resumes are so close anyway. But I think about the way the season has gone. Kentucky is now 23-10 on the year, and we saw it today, where there's a clear gap between being an SEC tournament quarterfinal team and a team that's playing on Saturday and Sunday. And last year, Kentucky probably should have made it to Saturday and lost to Oklahoma in the quarterfinal, but it's going to be interesting to me. And I don't want to talk like the season's over, but just as far as the SEC tournament is considered, right? It's going to be interesting to see moving forward with Madden Greenway as your, I would assume, your true freshman starting point guard. Unless I don't think Kenny will go to the portal to get his replacement there, but maybe he will. I don't know. At the same time, I just wonder. Okay, can next year be the year you make that jump from quarterfinal to semifinal championship game, or is it going to be a couple years of a building block? Right. I just sit here and wonder to myself, you know, you saw the gap today, and Kentucky played South Carolina really close on Sunday. And I think Kentucky's somewhere in the middle. You know, I don't think they're 4 points less than South Carolina, but I also don't know if they're 23 points less than South Carolina. I think it's somewhere in the middle, right? Probably like 15 or so. About, Kentucky plays South Carolina neutral court, equal days of rest 100 times. And I think Kentucky, their average margin of defeat's like 15, something like that. And, I'm not mad at the result. It sucks the way it happened, obviously. You wish it was a more competitive game. But, you know, really kind of the last week or two of the regular season, my whole thing was beat Auburn, make it to Friday of the SEC tournament. Kentucky checked both of those boxes. And I don't know if that's going to be good enough to the committee. I thought it would be good enough for me, right? I thought it made sense. But we'll see what the committee has to say. And I mean, it sucks because now we kind of just play the waiting game. And for us, we'll be scoreboard watching, like I said, the Big Ten and everything. But at the end of the day, all we can do is wait. Would have been nice to get the win. Just feel like Kentucky couldn't really ever get things going offensively. And then defensively, South Carolina, when they start making shots and they get hot, you can call timeout. It ain't going to stop nothing. So, again, it sucks, but that's the way the ball rolls sometimes. But at the end of the day, it's been a good year, and I think Kentucky has a shot to make a big run in the big dance. I do. I've seen the way this team has played since De'Anna Key's gotten back, and today, not a great example of it. But Kentucky, for the most part, has played like a top 10 basketball team. I don't think it's absolutely insane to think that Kentucky could make a run to the Elite Eight, right? But you gotta hope for good matchups, a good draw, and you gotta hope Kentucky starts making shots. So, I'm Phoenix Stevens here in Bon Secours Wellness Arena. It was nice to cover a couple of wins here in the SEC tournament, but hopefully in the future, instead of a couple, it's a few, right? So, again, thank you all so much for tuning in. If you've enjoyed this, like, comment, subscribe, do those great things for us. We're making a push to 60K. Let's get there. Thank you all so much again. I will see you all next time. Peace out, and go Cats.